The High-Rise Mystery. Chapter 61. Katie, DCI Sharp, and Officer Burnett ran into the room. They were finally acting on our message. Katie shouted at us. "What did I say to you both? What did I say? I told..." A tall black man pushed through the gap and stood next to her. "Pap! He was free at last. Pap!" we screamed. "Alexanders, assemble!" he screamed back at us. "You're back, you're here, you're free!" Norva shouted, in tears. Pap swept us into a group hug. Jane wept behind him. "This is beautiful," she said, dabbing her eyes. Norva wiped the tears away. She shook her braids. Okay, where were we? Let me wrap this up real quick. Now she felt safe, had an audience. She was in her element. "For the benefit of our new arrivals, I'll go from the top," said Norva, looking at DCI Sharp. "Hugo never died by blunt force from a paint can. That was a fortunate coincidence, wasn't it, Serena? A perfect decoy." Serena was silent. Mark stood next to her, his mouth hung open at the unfolding scene. "You killed him using Vitonica, didn't you?" "Well, from its waste. The seeds, kernels and pits you extracted during production. And then you fed it to him. Your own brother. Beautiful work, Serena," said Norva, sarcastically applauding her. "Really well done. Get everyone on the try on your side. Through the juice. And the dog walking and the yoga classes. Perfect. Smart." Serena was silent. Mark could not believe it. "Serena," he whispered, "you never... The threats were a lie. I'm involved in this for no reason." Serena was silent. I spoke up. "That's what the Tupperware container of pulp was, and why you had so many blenders in the van. The seeds kept breaking them." Norva nodded. "So you got the village idiot here to torch it, to hide the evidence. Lovely." Mark shook his head in disbelief. "Maybe I am an idiot," he whispered. "There were no threats. You wrote that letter yourself, using terrible grammar on purpose, to keep him in the frame, right, Serena?" "Note?" asked DCI Sharp. "She never showed you the note?" I asked, and then I understood. "Ah, that's why she kept it. And it was never filed as evidence. We just assumed you were stretched and forgot." "I didn't forget evidence," she replied, her left eye twitching silently. "Oh my God," shouted Mark. Serena was silent. A murmur ran through the room. "Pap and Mark cleaned the scene for you. It was planned by Hugo. You and your fruits brought the ants up here, and your cyanide killed them. Hugo didn't know that he could be covering up his own murderer when he ordered his repairs months ago, did he, Serena?" Serena was silent. Norva looked at the crowd, but mostly at DCI Sharp. It was almost perfect. Almost. Except you couldn't find what you were looking for, could you? The clock. Serena laughed. "Almost perfect, girls," she clapped. "You're right. Almost perfect." "Why would you do this to your own brother?" said James. "For a timepiece? That's just ridiculous." "You're all so naive, so simple." She looked Jane up and down. "That's why I love it here," she laughed. No. The clock is not a timepiece. It's not a watch of any kind. It's a vase by Alice Klockenstein, hence the colloquial name, Serena said. It's a seminal, unique piece by her, Hugo's pride and joy. Her only vase was a lid, priceless. Well, no, not priceless, she chuckled, but worth $500,000 or so. Her eyes shone, a life-changing amount. So she changed Hugo's life to have it. I found the bottom, but I couldn't find the lid. Without it, well, it might as well be worthless. She chuckled. A vase with a lid. A chill ran through my body, but something burned a hole in my pocket. I looked over at Norva. She looked back at me, confused at my reaction. I felt faint and stumbled on the spot. I reached into my pocket. I turned the lid over in my hand and looked at it closely for the first time. 1/1 Klockenstein was inscribed on the inside. I thrust my palm at Serena. "You mean this?" Serena was whiter than skimmed milk. Her eyes, two burning black holes in her face. She launched herself at me like the wild, rabid animal she truly was. "You had it the whole time," she screamed. "The whole time?" Pat jumped between us quickly, followed by DCI Sharp and her colleague. "Book her, boys," shouted Norva above the phrase. "Katie, Miranda her up." Katie looked at DCI Sharp, who nodded. Katie stepped forward, she beamed and stood up straight. Serena Jocasta Knightley Webb, you do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something which you later rely upon in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. Katie slipped the handcuffs on Serena's wrist. Impressive work, said DCI Sharp to Nova. Her voice was cool, but there was warmth in her eyes. Nova squealed with delight. I try, she said, bowing. Katie led Serena to the door and onto the avenue. The crowd that had gathered below booed at the sound of 100 camera phone flashes. Hugo's flat began to empty. Jane turned to Pap. I told you about her, didn't I? Didn't I? She said, swatting at him. She gave him a huge cuddle. I missed you, she said, into his neck. Get a room, said Nova, sticking her tongue out.